What's up, y'all? It's Loco, and today we're gonna be talking about Sasuke versus Jiraiya. I got my boy Sage at Thick Kaz with me too. Sage, you want to break down this topic for us?
So for the structure of the video, what we're going to be doing is sort of finding a place in the story where these two characters can match up, and we're going to be using Heavy Sasuke post Orochimaru absorbed, and then Jiraiya with all of his feats throughout the series, so he can access Sage Mode, Ma and Pa, all that good stuff. We've got these two incredibly powerful combatants facing off against one another, and in order to kind of talk about how this fight will most likely go, let's just go ahead and hop right into the scaling. I know, there are a lot of things to go over. These combatants have a ton of different unique abilities, but I think, honestly, the most important thing here is the physical scaling. And I know, Loco, you've got a lot of great arguments in regards to this. So you want to sort of start us off with their speed scaling?
To start things off, I think a lot of people would agree with me when I say that there isn't that big of a difference between Heavy Sasuke and Taka Sasuke, right? If anything, I personally believe that Taka Sasuke is weaker than Heavy Sasuke. There's a statement from Jugo that says like Sasuke still hasn't recovered from his fight with Itachi. Karin also says that like he didn't really surpass the Curse Mark II state until the 5 Kage Summit. And of course, I just think that the little like MS buff, he hadn't even really used the MS at that point in the series. It's likely a lot weaker than any type of power buff he would have got from the Curse Mark or Orochimaru's power. So I am under the impression that Heavy Sasuke is actually stronger than Taka Sasuke. If you disagree, that's perfectly fine, but you at least have to admit that they're relative. So speaking of Taka Sasuke, in his fight with B, he actually displays some pretty crazy feats. For starters, we actually see him being relative to base B throughout the entire fight. Like their swordplay was on par with each other. B had a really weird fighting style, that's why he was able to take advantage of Sasuke like that. But there are still several instances of where like Sasuke is able to outplay B, and of course he's able to react to all of his attacks. However, there is an even greater feat of Sasuke physically reacting to and dodging version 1B's lariat, which should be one of his fastest attacks. B also states that like Sasuke was the first person to dodge that lariat since his older brother Raikage A. This is kind of putting Sasuke at version 1B speeds, which is pretty insane. And of course, everybody already knows that statement that B made about like Sasuke being the toughest opponent that he's ever fought. That would include Minato, so personally, if you've ever watched any of my videos before, I do like to say that Minato kind of did get perception blitzed by base Jonin B, right? In their fight during the Third Great Ninja War, we actually see trying to attack the Raikage. He takes his back. He's about to stab him with that kunai, and B comes out of nowhere with his partial transformation tentacle and pushes the Raikage out of the way. Minato doesn't realize what happened until afterwards, because you see the text dialogue where he's like, "That's exclamation point, exclamation point," and he's like so surprised that B actually pushed him out of the way. It's a crazy feat.
Yeah, and we were talking about this beforehand too. I think so. There are a couple arguments to be made in Minato's favor, but none of those arguments change the fact that this tentacle covered more ground in the same amount of time that Minato's arm was traveling downward to strike A. Like, it covered more ground in that time than Minato's arm did, and you can actually prove this because we talked about how because it's an off-panel like blindside sort of movement, there's not really an argument to be made necessarily that if Minato was looking straight at him, he couldn't have dodged it, right? But the fact is, this thing traveled faster than Minato and A, and we can prove it because you actually get to see. So when Minato teleports onto the tree to dodge A's attack, and then he teleports back, when he's on the tree, you see A in the background, and the tentacle is nowhere in sight. And then suddenly Minato is on top of A, and then the tentacle flies in behind him and pushes him out of the way. So like, even if you want to argue that Minato maybe wasn't going all out, or maybe it's not really something that he couldn't have dodged himself if he was fighting him 1v1. The fact is, it moved faster than he did. So like, it's a crazy feat. Like, the fact that his tentacles are moving so fast, and then you have Sasuke reacting to this arguably a stronger version of him, it's insane. I don't mean to cut you off, but like, oh dude, whenever we found that, I was like, oh my god, like there's an actual like provable way to show that this thing moved faster than Minato did.
Because that was base Jonin B, right? We actually know for a fact that Raikage A forced B to stay in the Cloud Village and train throughout his entire life. There's actually statements that support that. So B has basically been training ever since he fought Minato, right? And of course he was in version 1, which is like stronger than his base form. So like version 1 adult B should concretely scale above base Jonin B. That's kind of common sense. And there's no real proof to like say that Jonin Minato is like any weaker than Hokage Minato. I'm of the belief that Minato didn't get that much stronger after becoming the Hokage. Maybe you can say he honed his techniques a little bit, but like there's really nothing to say he got any stronger or faster. There's not a statement or a feat that exists in the entire series to prove this.
Yeah, well, and even if you're on my camp, where like I do think that he's gotten stronger to like an unquantifiable degree, like we don't see him use the Rasengan in this fight against them, so that implies one of two things. Either one, he wasn't necessarily going all out trying to kill these guys, because like, let's be real, he was trying to strike A with a kunai in his V1 clip, so it's like, it's weird, you know, that he didn't use the Rasengan there if he's trying to kill him, or the second part is maybe he didn't have the Rasengan at that point in time, which is also weird because we saw the Minato one-shot manga, and he appears younger there, but like, it's totally unclear how old he is throughout all of this, so yeah, it's regardless of how you slice it, like the fact that B is capable of contending with this version of Minato, and realistically, because Minato teleports around so much and doesn't really use his physical speed that often, it's really hard to quantify whether or not he got faster or better with the FTG over time. Again, I personally am of the opinion that he is stronger just because, like, we know that, you know, he's somebody who trains, and we know that, like, he's just a genius, high-level shinobi, and then also he uses the Rasengan in his fight against Obito. But it doesn't really matter here because at the end of the day, B's tentacle moved faster than his arm strike. Like,
exactly.
It's insane.
Like, all he had to do was extend his arm, yet B just, like, fucking blitzes him from across, like, he was off panel. He was probably like half a football field away. He's nowhere in sight. Yet Minato couldn't move his arm before B shoots across a long distance. I don't know, man. I think that's not a very good look for Minato. I do think that, like, it's kind of heavily implied that Minato and the Raikage are supposed to be relative. And actually later on in that same fight, like, the Raikage actually says that B is more talented and stronger than he is, right? He's like, yeah, B is like I'm pretty strong, but B, he's something else, right? So I don't know. I think it's kind of implied that Sasuke, who's relative to B, who's stronger than Minato and the Raikage, it's kind of a crazy scaling chain for my boy Sasuke here. And we kind of know that Hokage Minato and version 1A do scale to KCM 1 Naruto. We actually see that version 1A is kind of bullying KCM 1 Naruto until he gets that mental amp. Like, before any of that happened, like, KCM 1 Naruto was getting cooked. Like he could not do anything. There's like several times where A is like completely keeping up with him and slamming him into the ground. It's very, very crazy. So all I'm saying is that Sasuke kind of scales to this KCM 1 tier of speed all the way back in early Shippuden.
Yeah, he's incredibly fast, and like, even if like you don't necessarily think that he's capable of like beating these opponents at this point in time, that again, for the speed scaling, does not matter. In an arguably lesser physically, you know, in a physically capable state, as Taka Sasuke versus the heavy Sasuke that we're talking about. So, like, yeah, it's tough, and so I know a lot of people are probably like, you know, what is going on here? Like, how we're getting him all the way up to KCM 1. Even if you don't want to look at that specific line of scaling, we know for a fact that he is faster than Jugo and Suigetsu, because we see him on panel stop them from trying to attack each other and restrain them with the snakes.
I know and that a lot of you are going to be downplaying my boy Suigetsu, and Jugo too, I guess. But Suigetsu is insane. The Suigetsu downplay needs to stop. Like my boy Sage was saying, Sasuke does blitz Suigetsu and Jugo with his snakes.
Yeah.
But later on, in the 5 Kage Summit, we actually see Suigetsu completely outspeed the Raikage, right? See one of the Raikage's aides put Sasuke under a little genjutsu, and Sasuke was kind of stunned for a minute. We see Darui and the Raikage pull right up on him, and they're about to move their arms down. Darui has a sword. He's about to bring his sword down. Raikage is just his arm. He's bringing his arm down. Suigetsu, off panel, out of nowhere, completely outspeeds the Raikage's arm movement with his own physical movement speed, and he just blocks the Raikage's attack. It's actually insane that he was able to do
It's
this.
crazy. Well, and like the counter argument obviously would be like, oh, maybe he's using the body flicker or whatever. But it does not matter because whenever Sasuke restrains both of them, they're both charging at each other, getting ready to strike. So like you would have to number one, prove that he was using something like the body flicker, and then number two, prove that that's faster than, you know, their combat speed. And it's just like, it's unprovable. Even if you don't like the stuff, you know, with him scaling, like the Minato stuff, like he still finds a way to get up to that, you know, Raikage A level by being a blitz tier above Suigetsu, who was able to low-key like blitz all the way across the battlefield and stop A's attack. So yeah, there are two different ways to get him up to a level of speed that I don't think anyone could possibly argue Jiraiya is in. I mean, like, Loco, you can talk on this, but like on my opinion, the best speed feat that Jiraiya has is totally unquantifiable. It's him jumping off of the wall with his sandal falling to the ground, and he just gets to the destination before the sandal hits the ground. It's like we have no idea how much time passed. We have no idea like how fast he was traveling. It's weird. It's weird. So you want to talk on sort of like how he is featless in terms of his speed?
The speed at which like objects accelerate is 9.8 meters per second. That's just the acceleration of gravity. That's not particularly fast, right? So I guess you can make a count and an estimation and say maybe Jiraiya was like 30 feet high, and then you can make an estimation off how fast that was, but that is still like horribly subsonic, right?
Yeah.
It's like just moving at the acceleration of gravity is not fast. It's not a speed feat for Jiraiya. And Jiraiya, that's like one of his only real fights throughout the entire series, so you can't even really scale Jiraiya's speed. It's like, okay, so he's faster than like the speed at which objects fall down. It's like that's not that fast. That's what like normal humans can do.
The only thing that like I could present that would like sort of get Sasuke into a lower tier of speed would be the fact that like he didn't think that Itachi would be able to dodge the Kirin because it travels the speed of lightning. But like, because I've seen this argument presented that he's not lightning speed because he thinks lightning speed is fast. That is not true. He literally like the only reason why he's even saying that is because he can see that Itachi is like completely exhausted. So at absolute worst, Sasuke is up in that level with like base B, who is able to at least contend with like, you could argue a relatively suppressed Minato, but like that's nowhere near where we're talking about with Jiraiya. Jiraiya, like he low-key like is having trouble with Konan whenever he's in base, and then he gets obviously the Sage Mode amp, but like it's not like he's out here just like blitzing all the paths back to back to back. I mean, you could argue like he's faster than the Pains because he's able to blitz the animal path, but like if he really had that much of a speed advantage, he'd just be bouncing from one to the other and destroying them. I mean, honestly, the paths of pain outside of the Diva path, whenever he's the only one being controlled by Nagato and like all of his chakras going into him, he's the only one that shows any respectable speed feats, in my opinion. I mean, I guess the Asura path blitzing Kakashi's Raikiri is super impressive, but like the point is, Jiraiya is nowhere near that level. Like nowhere near that level, even in Sage Mode.
Also, I'd just like to mention, like, even if you are being, like, very credible to Jiraiya, saying that he's relative to all the paths of pains and all of them are the exact same speed, there's a databook statement for Sasuke that basically says he's faster than any Akatsuki member, right? I'm sure a lot of you may know what I'm talking about. It's been in the community for a while. It says, godlike speed. His power exceeds that of even the Akatsuki. His speed takes away the breath of Akatsuki members. So it's like consistently putting Sasuke above any of the Akatsuki members, at least in terms of speed. That is completely undeniable. So, I mean, there's really no way that you can scale pain to KCM 1 levels. Sasuke is just faster than almost all of the Akatsuki members we know of at this point. At least for Itachi and maybe like Kisame, he'd be relative to them. But everyone else, especially like Pain and the lower members, are gonna be slower than Sasuke based off this statement. So it's like, even if you really want to downplay Sasuke, at the very, very least, he still has a massive speed advantage on Jiraiya.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and we wanted to go heavy on the speed because it is such an important aspect here. And like, do I think that he's just like running at him and, you know, decapitating him in a nanosecond and like there's no actual fight that happens. No, I don't think that Loco is leaning in that direction either. But like the point is, like, if it comes down to a battle of them like exchanging blows, going back and forth, the combatant that has the decisive speed advantage is more likely to land a blow, you know. So that it's super important. That's why I wanted to go heavy on that. Do you have anything to add on that before we go into the rest of their physical scaling?
I just want to say that Jiraiya got blitzed by the Ashur Path not once, but twice. The second time it was base Jiraiya, he was already out of Sage mode, but like the Ashur Path just appears out of nowhere and crushes Jiraiya's throat before he can even react. So it's just more like concrete feats that put Jiraiya like below Pain. It's kind of sad, to be honest.
Yeah, he's not on that level. I love Jiraiya, but he's not known as a speed demon, right? Like that's just not who he is. Like Jiraiya, I will say, in terms of like their physical scaling, obviously Sasuke has a very significant speed advantage. Again, I don't think it's going to be something that just like ends the fight instantly, but it definitely like leans the fight heavily in his favor whenever we're talking about the physical skills, because whenever we come to like strength, when Jiraiya is in Sage mode, he's got a very clear strength advantage.
Yep.
Whenever he's in base, it's unclear. He doesn't really have any like major strength feats in base, to my knowledge. But I do think that obviously he's got a strength advantage in Sage mode, but I really don't think that's going to make a massive difference here either, because Sasuke's got a decisive speed advantage. Do you agree with that, Loco?
But I would like to mention that Kabari Senbon is the fastest attack in Sage Jiraiya's arsenal, yet the lesser paths of Pain are able to react to it, and like I think the animal path like summons the big panda shield thing in time, and he doesn't even get hit by it. It's like that's Jiraiya's fastest attack, and it couldn't even catch one of the Pains off guard. So it's like Sasuke, who just concretely scales above Pain's tier of speed. It's like that's like, how can Jiraiya really even touch him at this point?
Hey, what's up, y'all? So I'm editing this video right now, and I just wanted to hammer in what Sage and I were saying about the speed scaling right now. I get that a lot of you may be confused about what I was saying specifically, and in hindsight, I should have done a better job of explaining myself, so let me just clear out some misconceptions that some of y'all might have. So Sasuke isn't just going to come in and just cut up Jiraiya really badly, like Perception Blitz him or anything like that. The best argument that you can make for Jiraiya's speed is that he should be relative to Orochimaru just based off statements, and of course Orochimaru, we kind of saw him swapping hands with Hiruzen, and Hiruzen is considered by many to be the strongest out of the 5 Kage that are currently around, and we know that A was around during Hiruzen's reign as the 3rd Hokage, so that would mean that Hiruzen is stronger than A, right? Well, that wouldn't inherently mean that he's as fast as or faster than the Raikage A, but he does need to be at least able to react to him in order to be stronger than him. So if Hiruzen and Jiraiya, by extension, can at least react to the Raikage's tier of speed, then of course Sasuke won't just be able to Perception Blitz him. I'd also like to mention that scaling the Pain is not really a good thing for Jiraiya. Even though he did kind of outspeed the human path really badly and kick him in his shit, he was still relative to the other paths, right? He's not just massively outspeeding them and blitzing him. And we do know that Pain was pretty relative to base or Sage Naruto, depending on your interpretation, but he wouldn't be any faster than Sage Naruto. Personally, I think Sage Naruto is faster than Pain. Still probably relative, but they're in the same tier of speed. And obviously, Sage Naruto shouldn't scale to KCM1 Naruto. I don't think that needs explanation. So Sasuke would still be faster than Jiraiya based off this. Of course, Jiraiya should be able to react, but the speed gap is pretty evident. Now, some of you might be asking yourselves, like, why is heavy Sasuke relative to the Raikage in KCM1 Naruto? Like, wasn't he getting beat up by the Raikage when he tried to attack the Kage Summit? And no, he was not, actually. He was actually outspeeding version 1 Raikage with just his base 3 Tomoe Sharingan. But I have a whole video made about that and like why Sasuke would scale there. It's actually called Why Heavy Sasuke is the Strongest Character in Shippuden. So if you guys want to check that out after this video, feel free. Maybe you can get like a more in-depth explanation as to why Heavy Sasuke, and by extension Taka Sasuke and Kage Summit Sasuke, as to why they would scale to that tier of speed. But also, I know a lot of y'all are going to bring up what Karin says after Sasuke fights Deidara and how that's like inherently means that Sasuke is weaker than sick Orochimaru, but that is not the Sasuke that we're referring to in this video. Obviously, at that point in time, he hadn't absorbed Orochimaru yet. It's heavily implied and outright stated that he did gain a power boost from Orochimaru. It's more than just his healing abilities and all that. So yeah, that statement would not refer to heavy Sasuke, only beginning of Shippuden Sasuke. I just thought I'd clear up a few issues some of y'all might have with this video. If you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to leave a like on it. If you're not enjoying it, tell me why in the comments if you disagree with our scaling. And of course, subscribe to my boy Sage at Thick Calves. He's a really good creator.
we're already laying out a potential win condition for Sasuke in a speed blitz, right? So what we're going to have to sort of try to find for Jiraiya, if he has any win conditions, it's going to come from like his wide array of jutsu and his sort of hacks abilities. And we'll get into that here in a little bit, but I think we agree on strength. Like Jiraiya's got the advantage in Sage mode. In base, it's, he doesn't really have anything. So like, I guess you could argue that Sasuke and CM2 should be stronger, but again, there's really no concrete, like crazy strength feats for either of them outside of Jiraiya and Sage mode. And then durability, I think Logo and I both agree that Sasuke in CM2 at least should have superior durability because he's able to like tank the bombs from Datara. He loses his wing, but he's able to like block it with the wing. And then Jiraiya just objectively, even in Sage mode, is like below the attack potency of an Asura Path punch because he blows his arm off. So like there's just no way to get Jiraiya above him in terms of durability. I don't think he's so below him durability wise that like, he's just getting like, one tapped by a punch or anything, but both these characters should be able to harm each other if they're able to hit each other. I think that's fair. Would you agree, Loco?
I'd agree with that, but the craziest thing is, like, Sage mode is supposed to, like, boost your durability as well as, like, other physical stats as well, and Jiraiya still got kind of fucked over by the Ashura Pass, so it's like, where does base Jiraiya's durability even scale at? It's, like, even lower than that, so it's not that impressive to begin with, especially because, obviously, Jiraiya needs prep time in order to enter Sage mode in the first place, and I don't know if he'll even get that far, to be honest, because Sasuke, he just has that clear speed advantage on him.
Yeah, well, and I think the most generous that you can be toward Jiraiya in terms of like his base durability would be like using the Four Tails Naruto or whatever to like hit him with the. And it's sort of unclear what he got him with, right? Or am I totally wrong on that? Because like, but either way, whatever he got him with, like he survived it obviously, but he took a lot of damage. So, but it's like it's totally ambiguous. There's no actual like footage of it happening. He just like says he got hit. I could be wrong. If I am, I'll put this up on the screen. But I think he just like says he got hit by him. So if he's getting hit by Four Tails Naruto, who like was kind of like unable to fully put down a no-armed Orochimaru, it's just like weird. Like his durability isn't super crazy. So yeah, I think physically Sasuke's got a pretty decisive edge, especially because of his speed advantage. But also if he goes into CM2, which he's got a much easier time accessing that than Jiraiya has accessing Sage mode. He's got a much easier time doing that. So he should have a pretty good durability advantage there. Now, I think physically we've kind of laid down a solid argument, in terms of their scaling. What do you think about their intellect? Because I'm of the opinion that they have two different types of intellect that they sort of special in, with Sasuke being more of the Kakashi style in battle tactical intelligence, like he's a genius in that way, whereas Jiraiya gets his advantage in terms of intellect from his wide array of knowledge and his experience, because he does have a ton of jutsu that he's been able to spend his life learning, and he's seen everything you could possibly see. I believe he's got the most completed missions in Konoha's history. So two different types of intelligence, but do you think either of them have a significant edge here in the intelligence category?
Like, it's exactly how you put it. Jiraiya has like experience and wisdom, but Sasuke just has that tactical mind, like the battle IQ that can plan strategies ahead of time. So they both are very smart fighters. I don't think either one is going to be like running mental circles around each other. That's not going to be the case here, but it would be a very, I suppose, intellectual battle. It's like they're very relative in that category, at least.
Yeah, I would say in terms of, in my opinion, you can feel free to disagree with this if you like. I personally think that like in battle, like in terms of mid-battle IQ tactics, again, much like Kakashi, Sasuke is a genius. Like he's able to come up with tactics on the fly to be able to utilize his abilities in a really smart way. Whereas I think that if you gave both of them prep time, Jiraiya would probably be better with prep time just because of his wide array of jutsu and knowledge. But if we're talking just like random encounter in character mid-battle, Sasuke, in my opinion, has the slight edge. We've got a pretty even playing field in terms of their intellect, with Sasuke likely having a slight tactical advantage, but not one that either of us believe is really going to change the tides of battle. Mm-hmm. But Sasuke does have that physical advantage. So now we're going to move on to abilities. So both of these characters have crazy abilities. I'm actually kind of happy that we're not talking about Taka Sasuke right now, because there's even more to cover. But with both of these characters, I think that what separates them from the pack really is sort of what they can do in terms of their jutsu arsenal. So do you kind of want to go over Sasuke's key abilities and some things that you think may play a key role here in this fight?
So, first things first, the Genjutsu GG argument is valid, right? At
That's true.
this point in time, Sasuke's Genjutsu has absolutely no anti-feats. He put down the Nine Tails. He was able to put down Deidara, who should be immune to Genjutsu under an illusion, right? He also broke out of Tsukuyomi, and he put Itachi under Genjutsu a few times. So, I don't know, man. Like, Sasuke throwing people into Genjutsu is it's going to be a pretty big threat in this fight.
Oh, yeah.
It's, of course, like, Sasuke has other, like, Orochimaru abilities and stuff like that, like Snake Substitution. We've already talked about the Curse Mark. Real quick, for those of you that don't know, the Curse Mark is a pretty big buff to all stats. There is kind of some contention that Sage was talking to me about the other day. It's like that the buff isn't always universal, and that came as a massive surprise to me. But I guess, like, it's possible that the Curse Mark can still be a 10 times amp when you're in its version 2 state, but it's not always like a flat value. Everyone reaps different rewards from it, but it is still incredibly strong. So all of the previous speed feats that I mentioned, they were all base Sasuke, by the way. Like, I forgot to tell you guys that earlier. It was base Sasuke. So base Sasuke has arguments of him just being KCM 1 level, but Curse Mark 2 Sasuke would be even stronger than that. Obviously, he has the ability to fly. That would just give him greater mobility in this fight. It would also amp all of his ninjutsu as well, since the Curse Mark technically is like Sage energy in some type of way. So it's like Sasuke with this Curse Mark should already just be significantly stronger and faster than Jiraiya, just based off the previous scaling.
Well, especially if Jiraiya is not able to get into Sage mode as well. I mean, I would argue that CM2 Sasuke probably still has more, like, greater attack potency and all of that stuff if we take their strongest forms, but especially if he's able to get into CM2 before Jiraiya can get into Sage mode, which, again, he has a much easier time of doing than Jiraiya does. Like, he's got to, like, keep his hands together for a certain amount of time after summoning Ma and Pa and, like, you know, run away and, like, get himself to be able to stay still. Like, it's crazy. So I think you could make a legitimate argument that Sasuke goes into CM2 before Jiraiya can even access Sage mode, and if he does, it's unquantifiable, but he does get some kind of significant boost, probably, to his overall capabilities. So it's crazy, man. Like, if he goes into CM2 and Jiraiya's in base, I think the fight's pretty much over.
Like, he's able to cut off one of B's massive tentacles. And of course, I still think Taka Sasuke is weaker than Heavy Sasuke. So I don't know, man. That's a kind of a pretty good AP feat for Sasuke.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. Yeah. Well, and not only is that, like, that's not the only application of his Chidori either. Like, you could argue, like, even if you want to like take the argument that Jiraiya somehow gets the drop on him and, like, is able to, you know, get a blindside attack, if Sasuke gets, which this would never happen, but if he does get, like, blitzed from behind or something, he can activate Chidori Stream, which, like, is an omnidirectional sort of attack that, you know, allows for him to cover, you know, a wide range in all directions to protect himself. So he's got all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, like, Sasuke's kind of busted at this point in time, and that's not even to cover, like, his regular Chidori.
Honestly, if they were to do a Rasengan Chidori clash, I think Jiraiya might win, specifically because he just has a better form of Senjutsu. He has, like, that honored Sage mode. And, of course, Ma and Pa could be shooting out their own jutsus as well. And we'll get into that in a minute. But it's just, like, can Jiraiya go into Sage mode before he gets, like, fucked? And I just don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Yeah.
Well, so in terms of Jiraiya's abilities, I mean, he's got a wider range of abilities, and a lot of them have to do with, like, his toad summoning. So just to hit a couple highlights, I mean, obviously, you know, he's got Sage mode. He's got Ma and Pa, who can, you know, unleash their own jutsu, like water that's able to, like, slash through concrete and stuff, which is pretty crazy. You know, obviously, he's got his powerful fire style that he can combine with the toad oil to, you know, make the toad oil bombs. He's got the dark swamp jutsu, which is kind of crazy. And if he catches Sasuke off guard with that, I do think that it could be a problem. You know, he's got the summoning of the, like, inner belly of the toad, and, like, the sort of, like, it's crazy because it's, like, kind of a dimensional summon. It's weird, like, the way that it's talked about, like, he's summoning the inside of a dimension. It's weird, but he's got all kinds of crazy stuff. And then like Loco was alluding to, if we do see a Sage Mode Jiraiya, Sage Rasengan versus, even CM2 Sasuke Chidori clash, which I'm not sure if that would happen in character or if the fight would get to that point. But if it did, I'm with you, man. I think that Jiraiya should win that clash. He's got just a crazy amount of like Sage output that he's putting into there. And then he would still have Ma and Pa there to sort of like cover for him if something were to go wrong. So, and then, they've got their summonings. And, I'm of the opinion that Jiraiya's ability to summon more toads than like Sasuke. We've never really seen Sasuke summon like a massive horde of giant snakes, but we know that Jiraiya can summon Gamabunta, Gamakichi, like a whole bunch of them, and then Monpa as well. I think he's got the edge in terms of summonings. Even if you want to say like their most powerful summonings in like Gamabunta, and then is it Manda or Auda, whichever one it is.
He has Manda at this point in the series, who is stated to be stronger than Gamabunta. So even if Jiraiya does summon Gamma, then like Manda should just make short work of him. Of course, Jiraiya could summon like more toads, and that would be a problem for Sasuke. But I forgot to mention this earlier, but worst case scenario, like even if you want to wank Jiraiya, and obviously I do think he does have a better like arsenal than Sasuke just because of all the summonings, because of the help from Ma and Pa. Even if you do want to say like the summonings just somehow overwhelm Sasuke, Jiraiya himself and Ma and Pa are just going crazy. Like there's Orochimaru's 8-headed Hydra Serpent. It's like, what is Jiraiya doing? What is Jiraiya doing? I don't think
and it's directly stated to be the most powerful and largest of all of the snakes. Like even more so than Manda. So like you could have like Gamabunta, Gamakichi, Gamachat, like all of the toads and Ma and Pa, and I'm not sure if they could take out the 8-headed Hydra.
Especially because it's like Orochimaru comes out as well. So it's like kind of like Naruto's Nine Tails transformation state. And it's like I don't think the fight would get this far to begin with. I do think Sasuke wouldn't ever get pressed that hard, but even if he does, he has something like really crazy to fall back on that I don't think Jiraiya has any way of defeating.
Speaking of their ninjutsu arsenals, there's something that you and I haven't talked about yet that I do think is important, but I'm not sure it would get used. The Kirin. Sasuke does have access to Kirin, and if he is able to set it up, which there are arguments that he doesn't need set up, and I think that I actually saw this in your Discord server. By the way, shout out to Loco's Discord server if you guys want to go check that out. I'll put a link in the description. But somebody was talking about like how he goes to use it against Team 7, we think, and like there's clear skies. So like the argument would be maybe he can still pull electricity out of the air to like a lesser degree than what he did against Itachi, but like he used the prep of shooting the fire into the air to create as much electricity as possible so he can like maximize the Kirin's capabilities. So there is a possibility that he could use the full power Kirin here if he's able to set it up, which I mean, again, if they both start in base, I personally am not sure the fight would get that far, but if he does feel the need to set that up and use it, he can, but there is an argument he could use a lesser form of it. Do you agree with that?
I definitely agree with that. Even in his fight with Itachi, it seemed pretty simple to set up. He just shoots fireballs into the sky, and then that creates the thunderclouds. So it's not like he's going to have a hard time setting up to begin with, because whenever he was actually fighting Itachi, when you see him like going into the Uchiha hideout, it's mostly clear skies, right? It's not like stormy outside. It turned that way because of Sasuke's fire jutsu. So it's not going to be that hard to set up.
I would also make the argument, though, that the Amaterasu probably played a big part in that. And I could be wrong, but I think Zetsu mentions that. But the fire heating up the atmosphere was like the key component to it being as strong as it was. But again, I think that there is evidence to suggest that he can use it without thunderstorms. This is headcanon either way, but to me, I would say it probably wouldn't be as strong. But either way, like we know Jiraiya doesn't have crazy durability, so it's like the lesser form might be able to put him down. But yeah, I think in terms of their abilities, we've pretty much covered everything aside from the thing that you and I talked about whenever we first hopped on the phone and talked about this, which might be one of only 2 win conditions for Jiraiya. The first one being the Rasengan Chidori clash. And that is the Toad song. Now, I know there have been people probably typing this in the comments already, and if you have, lucky you. This is described in the data book to be the most powerful genjutsu. Now, you can take that as you want. I'm pretty sure that Tsukiyomi and the Kodomatsu Kami are also called the most powerful genjutsu at different points in time.
Yeah, they are.
But either way, it is stated to be the most powerful genjutsu. So I'm like, this could be a potential win con. But Loco, do you want to sort of talk about how this might come into play in the fight?
Yeah.
And sort of how you think it would play out?
So I think it would be like a desperate last ditch attempt. Like if you grant Jiraiya that like he was lucky enough to make it into Sage mode before he gets like kind of stomped on, like he would just be like, bro, Monpa, we need to use this jutsu right now. And like them seeing Sasuke, seeing him as the threat that they think he is, I think that they would be willing to use it for him. So they go into Frog Song, and then there's the argument that Sasuke might be able to break out of it. And I don't even think it's an argument. I think it is very, 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 very clear that he'd be able to do it. So
to me, it depends on how long it would take. But I totally agree with you. I think like at some point he would be able to break it.
So to set this up, right? It's stated at the very, very beginning of the series when the Sharingan is first unveiled. It stated that it has the ability to defeat all types of genjutsu and see through all illusions. This is just talking about the base Sharingan, right? And this was stated at the very, very beginning of the series. And of course, we see that Sasuke possibly broke through Tsukuyomi. So obviously, you can make the argument that Itachi let him break out of Tsukuyomi. However, it's actually stated in the databooks that with his masterful use of the Sharingan, Sasuke defeats the Mangekyo Sharingan. So that would imply, or just outright state, that Sasuke broke out of Tsukuyomi because he's so good at using the Sharingan. And once again, I'm pretty sure Tsukuyomi is also referred to as the strongest genjutsu. And it's already a precedent for the Sharingan being able to see through any type of genjutsu. So, since Sasuke is this good with the Sharingan already, you can make a very, very good argument that he will just nag Frog Song.
Yeah, well, and again, like I was saying earlier, I think it would just depend on how long it takes, right? Because it is, to me, I agree with you. I think it's totally clear that he should be able to break out of it. But I do think that if he gets caught by it, he might be immobilized for a second. Because we do see him, like you referred to earlier, get hit with genjutsu during the 5 Kage summit, right? And it kind of incapacitates him for a second, which leads to a sort of having the opening, which leads to Suigetsu blitzing him, right? Yeah. So there is a precedent to be set for him getting hit with genjutsu and then taking a moment before he's able to fully recover from it. And then also, just to play devil's advocate here, you referred to people, making the argument that Itachi let him break out. That's not my interpretation because the data book is so straightforward. My interpretation, and I think this is backed up by all of the media that we have on it, is that the Tsukuyomi can be used at different levels. I don't think that Itachi was actually trying to kill him. I do think maybe he used a lower form of the Tsukuyomi, like something like he used against Kakashi. But we know that he's able to use it and put somebody in a genjutsu that makes them live out the rest of their lives in a picosecond. We get that in the novels. So and it kills her, his girlfriend. So there is a precedent that's been set for him being able to use varying levels, varying degrees of this jutsu. So I do think that's my interpretation of it personally. But again, he did break out of it, and it is stated to be the strongest genjutsu, just like the Frog Song is. So I think I totally agree with you. I do think, though, or let me know what you think about this. Do you think that he would be incapacitated for long enough for Jiraiya to potentially land a killing blow if he does get hit by it?
Well, whenever Jiraiya did it against Pain, he kind of had to run away a little bit. And then he needed a little bit of prep time to set it up as well. So there's an argument, once again, that he'll never be able to get it off in the first place. But being generous to Jiraiya, and he does get it off, it's entirely up to your interpretation of whether or not Sasuke can recover from it in time. I think it is definitively proven that he can break out of it, but it might take him a while, just like Sage said. But even once again, we're giving Jiraiya a lot of the benefit of the doubt here. Let's say it stuns him for too long and Jiraiya is able to take advantage of that. There's still the high possibility that Orochimaru can just break him out of it. Orochimaru say, hey, if you want me to break you out of this jutsu, you gotta let me take control. And
that's crazy. I didn't even think about that.
I just thought of it right now. It's the 8-headed Hydra Serpent comes out, GG's. That's not even a win con for Jiraiya.
Neg. That's crazy. Oh my god, I never thought about that.
Exactly. It just hit me right now. I think that Orochimaru, of course, his chakra is inside Sasuke, and you need someone else to disrupt your chakra. So it is entirely possible that Orochimaru can break Sasuke out of it, take over his body, 8-headed Hydra Serpent comes out, GG's.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. That is absolutely insane. Dude, I think there's something to that. I do think that if he does get hit by it, which, as we both alluded to, it's essentially a long shot. It's a Hail Mary that probably won't, the fight probably won't get there, to be honest with you. But if he does get hit by it, I think it should give Jiraiya enough time to land a killing blow. But Logo did just present some freaking heat right there with like a possibility for him getting broken out of it quick. So I think that we've sort of made a pretty compelling case that, especially if they're fighting in character and they start in base, Sasuke just has way more win conditions than Jiraiya has, and they're all far more likely than what Jiraiya's are.
Exactly.
So it's just like, to me, I love Jiraiya. I like these characters on similar levels. I don't really lean one direction or the other in terms of who I like more as a character. And going into this, I actually was leaning, before I started doing more research on it, I was leaning toward Jiraiya just because of his versatility. But when you take the speed advantage, you take the durability advantage, you take the fact that their intellect is kind of a push, and then, you know, when you factor in the abilities, the only real win condition that I can see for Jiraiya that's actually feasible is the Rasengan and Chidori clash, and he has to go into Sage mode to get that. So, because I don't know about you, Loco, but I don't think his base Rasengan is doing anything against that Chidori.
Of course not. So, like, once again, that would be Jiraiya's, like, I suppose that might be the only time he could actually get one up on Sasuke, but I don't think that clash would be enough to actually seal the deal for the fight. So, Once again, I don't think Jiraiya has any win cons. He doesn't have any jutsu that are fast enough to touch Sasuke. Genjutsu GG is a big argument. There's, of course, Kirin, 8-headed Hydra Serpent, and the rest of Orochimaru is just, like, fuckery in general. So, it's like, it's very, very hard for you to argue that Jiraiya might win. And honestly, I should have brought this up earlier because I know that someone had already typed this out in the comments, but they're going to undoubtedly bring up this statement that Suigetsu makes all the way in the war arc about how, like, Sasuke, like, just upon getting the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, had just then surpassed Orochimaru. And not only is that horribly mistranslated, Suigetsu is just blatantly wrong in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Because we know for a fact that EMS Sasuke scales directly to Edo Itachi. Itachi has already shown to be able to neg Orochimaru with absolutely no difficulty. So it's like, what is Suigetsu even talking about? Like, first of all, he doesn't even know, like, how strong Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan Sasuke is. He's never seen him fight before. He has no reference. I don't know why they even put that in the story. And second of all, it's mistranslated. It's blatantly mistranslated. So I think Viz puts it as we've just now surpassed our masters or something like that, and that's a statement that everyone loves to quote. But a friend of mine actually translated that through, like, ChatGPT and Google Translate and a few other sources, and there came up with a few other interesting translations. Most of them talking about, like, we made it as the underdogs. It's our era now. Success in the underdog. After all, it's our time now. Having prevailed from the disadvantaged position, it's our time already. There is absolutely nothing that would say, like, Orochimaru is above EMS Sasuke, because that wouldn't even make sense within the context of the actual series in general. It's just a horribly mistranslated statement that a lot of people love to quote in order to downplay Sasuke.
For sure. Well, and also, like, if you're going to be as generous as possible to, like, Jiraiya here through that conversation, there is a panel where Orochimaru says, like, he couldn't even steal Sasuke's body, and then Suigetsu thinks to himself, like, I wonder about that. But, like, if you're being as generous as possible, all you could say is maybe he's, like, able to detect their chakra levels, or, you know, maybe he's got, like, a fear of Orochimaru because of everything he put them through, which is actually, like, lended credence by earlier parts of that discussion. So, like, there's no real way to actually get Orochimaru to that level. And even if you want to say, nope, that statement means that he's on that level, this is the Orochimaru that got brought back using Zetsu cells. like this is not the same Orochimaru that was said to be, you know, a rival to Jiraiya. Like, this is a completely different beast. So it's just, there's no real argument for that line of scaling. And I think Loco totally agrees with that. And so I think we've laid it out pretty good. I mean, so do you think that the fight goes any differently if they both start in their most powerful forms, or no?
I think it's going to be a little bit harder for Sasuke because Jiraiya obviously has access to a better range of his abilities, but there's still the fact that Kabari Senbon is Jiraiya's fastest attack, and the Pains reacted to it with no difficulty. We've already proved that Sasuke scales above anyone in the Akatsuki in terms of speed, possibly scaling, or not possibly, definitely scaling to KCM1 Naruto, version 1 Raikage, version 1B, all of that good stuff that we already talked about. I don't think Jiraiya will actually be able to land a meaningful hit on Sasuke, even if he does spawn in with Sage Mode. It's just going to be a little bit harder for Sasuke. Normally, it wouldn't be as hard if they both start in their base forms.
Yeah, I think if we take these characters in character and they start in their base forms, I think that Sasuke wins this probably 10 times out of 10. I do think he'd have some difficulty landing a killing blow just because Jiraiya is so crafty, but eventually he's going to get to him. I think he would get to him before he's even able to access his Sage Mode. He counters his Toads with his snakes. He counters all of his ninjutsu with his own. So I don't really think there's an argument there. I think if they start in their most powerful forms, Sage Mode to CM2. The only win condition that Jiraiya might have is, again, the Sage Rasengan versus Chidori clash. But as Loco alluded to, that might not even be a guaranteed win condition. It might just, because he could shield himself with his wing or something like what he did against Datara. Whereas if that doesn't work, he still has a decisive speed advantage over Jiraiya. So yeah, no matter how you slice it, the Pervy Sage is losing to the Uchiha Avenger.
I couldn't agree more. I went into this like just knowing that Sasuke would slam. I know a lot of people have trouble believing that, just because they think that Jiraiya is like this strong dude, that he's like a fan favorite character. People just love to talk about Jiraiya here and there, but he just really has no speed feats that could put him on Sasuke's level, and it's just, I guess he did die too soon. If he was brought back in the war arc, maybe we could have talked about Edo Jiraiya or something like that. That would have been an interesting conversation. But as of right now, Sasuke will win 10 out of 10 times, just like my boy Sage said.
Absolutely. Well, I think that we covered that pretty well. And if you guys, I want to know what you guys think. Make sure that you guys let us know in the comment section below if we're 100% correct or if we're way off the mark. We want to know, and we'll both be trying to engage with all the comments and everything. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and for anybody that made it this far, thank you for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day.
Peace.